Welcome to Rebel Health Radio, bringing the best in alternative and integrative medicine to your ears. Hello everyone, it's Patricia Warby from Alchemy Therapies and my Emotional Audit and all the books and everything that I do. Today I wanted to do a book review. I want to actually talk about somebody else's book, Martha Beck's The Way of Integrity, which I've just finished. Actually, it's over 360 pages, no, 330 pages, but it's extremely large type. I don't know if you can see that. So it doesn't actually take as long as you would imagine, but this is a very important book, particularly important, I think, for people going through a healing journey. And what she does that's very different is actually she's using an allegory that Dante, when he wrote the Divine Comedy, which I knew nothing about. It's a very old story from, I think, 1323 or something like that. When he wrote the Divine Comedy, it was an allegory of what happens to a lot of people in midlife. Okay, it was a midlife crisis story. I never knew that you're wandering in life and you suddenly hit an impasse, whether that be emotional, spiritual, physical, or mental, emotional. Most people have a point in their lives where they find themselves in what Dante called the dark wood of error. And what Martha does is she sort of updates the story for modern times in a sense. She's putting it into context for us. And she calls the dark wood of error syndrome. Everything these days is a syndrome, isn't it? Have you noticed? Anything unexplainable. And she said there are symptoms, and here they are. I thought I'd read them out because this is very applicable to a lot of the people that come and see me. Feeling purposeless. Okay, you suddenly don't know what your meaning is in your life, and you don't know what you're supposed to be doing. You've been doing in your 20s and 30s, usually, you've been doing all the things that other people told you would make you happy and hasn't made you happy, or it's made you very confused, or you're feeling lost and alone. So that's one thing. The second is emotional misery, which is a strong phrase, actually. It's a sort of sense that your mood doesn't feel right. You don't know why you're where you are. You've sort of lost your way emotionally. Physical deterioration, right? So this is really important. Number 3 is physical deterioration, because we tend to think mental, emotional problems are only affect us in the brain. Well, they don't. They affect us in the body as well, because of the physiological connection with moods and emotions, which changes your biochemistry, changes everything about you, actually. And so you may hit physical problems. You may find you're having multiple accidents, which you don't understand, or gut issues, or skin issues, or anything really can be affected. You know, you might find fatigue, as a lot of my clients have fatigue or pain. So that's another aspect. Consistent career failures. That's an interesting one. I don't know if I'd have put that so high up. That's number 5 for her. Well, I don't know about failures, but a sense that careers don't seem to work out how you imagine they would, and they don't fulfill you. That's kind of how I would put it. Number 6, bad habits you can't break. Now that would be right up there in the top 3 for me. Repeating patterns of any sort, whether you're you find you're just doing things in relationships or in work environments that just keep repeating. You seem to get the bullying boss, or you get the relationship that can't sustain, or whatever it is. If you see a repeating pattern and you don't seem to be able to stop doing it, even though you change the players in the play, the ending is always the same. So those are sort of signs and symptoms, and she gives you lots of exercises in the book as well. So it's not just reading and taking in stuff cerebrally, but it's answering questions. Are you in the dark wood of error? Well, she gives you 28 questions to answer. I think I did it, and I had, I think, 15 or 16 of those. So I was, my life is much happier than most, but there may be 1 or 2 areas where you're still divided from your true self. Well, I'd say that's possibly true. And the way of integrity will fix that. All right. So this is the title of her book, The Way of Integrity. And I'm not going to go through the book in detail because I leave it to you to explore it. It's a really, really soulful exploration based on her own life, basically, because she's had experiences in her life where she's come from being a Mormon, brought up as a Mormon. Her father was a very famous Mormon. Wasn't as if she was just the average person. She was in the hierarchy, you know, of Mormonism, or Latter-day Saints, as it's also known. And she basically had to decide what she wanted in her life, and she has a sort of split life where she was being a Mormon mum, and then she was also being a highly rewarded academic at Harvard. And she couldn't marry those two things, and it caused her a great deal of existential crisis. And in the end, she decided to try for a whole year to not lie, not even white lies. So, you know, when someone asks you, how are you? And you say, oh, fine, thanks. And actually you're not. It's a white lie, okay? You don't want to tell the truth because maybe it feels inappropriate, or you don't want to overload somebody, or you don't really know why you feel the way you do. So a white lie is there to serve that sort of social connection and keep that going. But she decided to go cold turkey on all of that. And so if people asked her how she was, she actually told them. And everything shifted in her life. Basically, she left her job. Eventually, she left her marriage. I'm not saying that that's necessary, but it was a mutual decision for both of them. They carried on living together for a long while, and they moved and changed their lives completely. But there was a reason she decided to leave the marriage, which was that she realized she was gay. And luckily so was her husband. I guess they'd been attracted to each other for that reason. So they raised their kids, and then they kind of separated and had other relationships. And anyway, that's the story for her. She now has a job doing what she loves, which is doing, helping people, life coaching them. But so her way isn't the way for everybody, doing that. You wouldn't necessarily want to throw everything away, and that's not necessary. But just to understand that healing is not just a physical process, it's a mental, emotional, spiritual process. And so what I love about this is that it brings in so much of what I have experienced in my life too, which is when you're ready, you will meet the teacher or the teachers. She talks about meeting Byron Katie. I've come across Byron Katie's work before, which is extraordinary. It's called The Work, as it happens, and she's not for everyone, but she's definitely one of the people I would say has got a handle on this. Changing the way you perceive what happens to you. You can't change what happens to you. The only thing you have control over is changing your perception. And she talks in one of the early chapters called Meeting the Teacher, that it has reactions in the body and the mind. So when the body meets truth, the response is relaxation. And I see this all the time when I'm working with people. The shoulders go down, the breath changes. They meet themselves where they are without the judgment. And so we let go of the tension, because there's a lot of tension when you're holding on to false beliefs about yourself or your place in the world or what you're here to be or do. It's incredibly exhausting going through life like that. Even if you don't know what it is you want, at least recognizing that what you have isn't what you want and that there's some help needed here. She also says when our minds recognize truth, we kind of get an aha moment. It feels like all the puzzle pieces fit suddenly. I get it. It makes sense to you on some deep level. The most important shift is in the heart, because we're very disconnected from our heart space, and the heart has such an important role in helping us make decisions. And she says that the ring of truth here feels like a flower opening. And I've often thought that's a beautiful metaphor, because the heart chakra is like a heart opening. And and we become more fully connected, more fully available to all our emotions. There are no wrong emotions. There are only the full range of whole emotions to a wholehearted life. So that could be love, it could be grief, it could be anger, it could be gratitude. All of these things are present in us, and actually enabling us to connect with those is part of being a fully connected human being. And it might be painful and it might be difficult to start connecting with what you truly feel, but that's where you are in the dark wood of error. So what's the next stage? Well, according to Dante, you're going into the Inferno, Dante's Inferno, okay, where everything is dark and difficult, and you feel like as you go further down, you meet more suffering, and it doesn't sound very nice at all, but it actually is the end of self-betrayal. I thought that was a beautiful statement, the end of self-betrayal. Because, you know, when we're in denial of our truth, we're actually betraying ourselves, because we come into the world with a potential, with a spiritual potential, if you like, as well as a physical one. And our bodies really are here as the vehicle for that, in order to make manifest our spiritual potential. And if we're not living according to our deepest truth, then we're basically betraying that potential. And courage, which is the word from the French, cœur, the heart, is really important here, because to take courage means to open your heart to possibility and the art of moving on. Yeah, self-blame and shame, or when we're in hell, basically, we're in Dante's Inferno, and we have to go through that, in fact, in order to know what it feels like to come out back through purgatory, and then eventually up the mountain, I think she calls it, and into paradise. And so this is the journey we're all making effectively, but we've never really, because we don't tell stories anymore, and very few of us have read Dante, I certainly haven't, it made me want to use much more storytelling and allegory in my work, which I do anyway, but it's such a powerful way of communicating information. And, you know, beginning this idea that you can't avoid these feelings, that you have to go through them, experience them, but do it in a way that feels cleansing and detoxifying. And you can do that when you've met somebody who can be with you while you experience that. Two of the people that Martha claims, you know, as her kind of teachers were people that were really important to me. So there was Katie, but there was also Anita Morjani, who wrote a book about her sort of near-death experience, where she died and had an experience while she was brain dead and her organs were shutting down, and then she came back to life and actually recovered from stage 4 cancer, which is remarkable. And we're not saying everyone can do that, but her story and what she learned in that kind of liminal space between life and death, I guess, has made her such a beautiful person to witness, to be around, to hear speaking. She's lost all her fear of death. So, you know, I agree. There are people who've had experiences that do transform them. And I guess that's what I'm hoping I provide for people. And I think this book, which is I guess you'd say it's a self-help book. There are lots of exercises. I've done quite a few of them. You know, understanding how it all works, and helping yourself to uncover what's true in you. I can't think of a better way of living than finding out your internal truth. There's one final point I wanted to make about the book, which is one of the few books I have ever come across in the self-help genre which actually talks about fractals. Now, people, stay with me here, please. I've written a book on fractals. It's called The Mystery of, actually, what is it called? I can't remember. Mystery of Number. That's it. Thank you. Thank you, brain. Because I believe everything in the universe has a pattern, including our consciousness and how it evokes through the body. And she calls it fractals of enlightenment, in that things reiterate at different levels. And so you might have experiences that keep repeating, and that's a fractal, okay? Because a fractal is a mathematical pattern repeat, self-similar. It might not be an exact replica. That's really important. So if you look at a fern leaf, for instance, the little frond and then the fernlets on the frond, if you kind of look at the pattern of those, it's identical but smaller. Nature uses fractals as a way of organizing itself, and we're part of nature, so it makes sense that we're also fractal. And not only are our bodies fractal, which by the way they are, because everything's in proportion, the fingers to the hand, the hand to the arm, all in similar relationship, mathematical relationship, but so is our experience, because we're embedded, at least as far as we know, in time and space. That some of our experiences in life are fractal. So if we have an experience when we're, for instance, in my life at 19, it gets repeated fractally at some future point, in my case around 39, 40, an experience of betrayal, for instance. These things repeat. But there is a balance to that, and we can actually go into allowing and changing those fractal patterns once we're aware of them. But awareness is absolutely key. So I was so excited to see that she'd included the idea that consciousness might also be fractal. And anyway, she's a wonderful person to experience. Watch some of her videos. I'll include maybe a couple of links in the show notes below, because she's funny, and she's just one of those people who lights up the screen when you hear her talk, which is a rare thing. I see that also with Brene Brown and a few other people that I really admire. So I would say a great book. I would question perhaps the format. I don't know why it's at such large print. Maybe that's a access issue, making it available to people with poor eyesight, but it's a great book. Elizabeth Gilbert has actually made a comment on the cover. Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love and a few other books that I've got. I actually haven't done a review of that. Maybe I'll do a review of Eat, Pray, Love, or one of her further books. You see, the whole point is you've got to do the work if you want to advance in your life and find the answers for yourself. But it needn't be such hard work. It can actually be a joyful process. And that's what I teach people. That's what I do with them. And we have fun, actually. It isn't always easy. I never can promise that, but it is always worthwhile. So if that sounds like something of interest to you, I can be found on alchemytherapies.co.uk. And you can find my books on Amazon and obviously on my YouTube channel here. All right, well, take care, everybody. Have a good week. Bye for now. Bye. Hey, hope you enjoyed listening to Rebel Health Radio. Do subscribe and look forward to catching you soon.